Okay, one second. Okay, so Jason, you can get ready and get started. You see the timer now, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this D-Zone webinar. My name is Jason Cockrum, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at D-Zone, and we're glad you're here with us. On today's webinar, we are going to hear from Aiven about how their platform can simplify the setup and management of cloud data technologies and alleviate the challenges associated with open source cloud data infrastructure. We'll hear about the results of an independent study conducted by Forrester, detailing how Aiven's platform delivered over 200% ROI for some of its customers. We've got a great lineup of guests here today to share these insights with us. Dave Beach is a solutions architect at Aiven with several years of experience helping customers manage data challenges with open source services across various industries, including retail, telecom, finance, and the public sector. Mike Gualtieri is a VP and principal analyst at Forrester with expertise in AI and emerging technology trends. He's authored over 130 research reports and currently advises businesses and technology leaders on business strategy, AI, and the digital transformation. Lorenzo Introna is a VP and principal consultant with Forrester, helping organizations utilize Forrester's extensive proprietary research and expertise to meet the ever-changing needs of business stakeholders. He also supports customers in optimizing their use of all kinds of business technology. And Murali Madhanagopal is a cloud AI and analytics enterprise architect at Intel. He has over 20 years of experience evaluating and implementing new technologies, building strategic partnerships, product management, and AI. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about today, so without further ado, I'm going to hand things off to Dave Beach. Dave, it's all yours.
Thanks very much, Jason. Yeah, hello everyone. Dave Beach, as Jason said, Solution Architect Lead here at Aiven, based in the UK. So just to give you a bit of background about who and what Aiven is. So we were created because our 4 co-founders essentially became very frustrated by having to think about the same old challenges again and again in every new project they did. So instead of building the same disaster recovery solution, the same backup or access management solution from scratch every time, what they decided to do instead was build a platform that gave the same power and benefits of all the open source software they love to use without having to constantly go and add all these extra capabilities that the enterprises need. So today, 7 years on, we're a global company. We've got hubs in Helsinki, Berlin, Toronto, and Singapore, and we're providing the trusted open source data platform for everyone. And by that, I mean 10 of the world's leading open source technologies for data streaming, data storage, and analysis, available in your choice of public cloud, all underpinned by a single unified platform to help keep costs under control, to help your organization remain as secure and compliant as you can be, and most importantly, to help get value from your data as quickly as possible. So very glad to be here with you all today. Now I'll hand over to Mike and Lorenzo, who will talk about some market trends and then the outcome of the TEI report we've worked on together. So Mike, over to you.
All right. Thank you. Let me just move to the slide here. So my coverage for the last 15 years has been focused on data technologies, including streaming data. 15 years ago, some people called that complex event processing, and also AI technologies. And my observation over those last 15 years has been how open source has come to dominate many of these data platforms. So I want to talk to you about some of the trends that I've been seeing more recently, last, let's call it 3 years, but even the last 18 months as well, when it comes to streaming data platforms and what we actually mean by that, because it's evolved as well. Of course, when we talk about streaming, we're not talking about Netflix, not on this webinar, right? We're talking about streaming data or data streaming platforms. And these are nuggets of data events. It could be price data. It could be a click of a website. It could be an order. It could be a machine sensor. It's any type of data that originates. And the interesting part of this is that it all originates in real time, right? And that's the entire context of streaming. When we're talking about streaming, we're talking about right now. And so if you do think about it, any piece of data does originate in real time. right? You may not think about that because you may not use it in real time. So you don't think of it as originating real time, but it does. And therein lies the opportunity, because for all data could potentially has a streaming application. Now, the thing about this data that originates in real time is, yeah, okay, if we look at that data in real time, we can get some insights from it. We can actually make some decisions on that, right? So imagine an e-commerce customer clicking through, looking for various products. You can probably infer what project they have going on or what they're shopping for, right? And then you could make a decision in real time based upon that data analysis, that streaming analytics. What would that decision be? Perhaps it's a product recommendation or something like that. So we call insights gleaned from streaming data perishable, meaning there's a lifespan to those insights and decisions. Now, please don't make the mistake of saying that we're saying that data is perishable. No, it's not, because you want historical data too, because historical data is essentially important for things like building machine learning models and seeing long-term trends. But many insights, many decisions are perishable. So at Forrester, we've come up with this perishability, data perishability index. And again, the context for that is in many organizations, they've got all this data that's originating in a transactional system or any other application for that matter. They perform some analytics. It's not fast enough. They're gleaning those insights. They're making some decision. How do they know if it's too late or if it's right on? So the whole point of a streaming data platform is to capture this data, capture these insights, so they can actually be used to improve business outcomes against a ton of different use cases, right? And I mentioned a few, right? There's e-commerce, there's many different customer use cases, but there's just as many industrial use cases as well. And so when we think about the insights that can be gleaned, we've got these 4 buckets here that you can see. We've got the real-time insights on the far left, going way up to the strategic insights. Now, the strategic insights, you have a lot longer to decide, to take actions on those, right? Should we open up a new market, right? That's made by leaders of a company. These real-time insights, though, are highly automated, and even operational insights are getting a little closer to real-time or near real-time. And you can see those insights and actions given a few examples of those. Here's a healthcare example, right? So we encourage our clients, because this is what we've seen through our research, that customers that are using streaming data, that's where they want to be. They want to be able to use this data in real time. And it's not being used necessarily in a silo, right? They may be using it in conjunction with machine learning models to lead to better business outcomes, reduce risks, all of the things that businesses are looking to do. So streaming data platforms is really, it's really the platform that can tie everything together, because the other reality of even mid-sized corporations, and certainly of global corporations, is that the portfolio of applications they have is vast, all these silos. So a streaming data platform also becomes a unifier of all of this data and of what's happening within the enterprise. So a little more formal definition of what I'm talking about here is here. A streaming data platform supports these 3 core capabilities. Data movement. I mean, technically you're copying data, but from one source to another, but moving data. So so someone makes an airline reservation, boom, you want that to appear in a different system, which is the loyalty system, and then maybe even in some sort of gate management system that the user has checked in. Real-time analytics. We want to look for a trend. Maybe it's a sales trend. Maybe it's a point of sales profitability in an instant, right? Or maybe it's equity trading trends as well. And certainly that moves quite fast. And then that third workload is more of a general stream processing workload where you have data from different sources, but it has to be processed, enriched, transformed in some way in real time. And that could be to go into a data warehouse. And you might say, oh, well, that's not real time. Well, but it's supporting perhaps a real-time dashboard or other use cases. So if you try to map this to open source, it's not one open source project, right? There's many different open source projects, and not just one that maps to these different capabilities, right? You might have Kafka mapping to movement, but there's Pulsar, analytics, different platforms for that, Flink, and there's other open source products that are relevant here. So these together, these streaming capabilities are necessary to create these what we call modern applications here, because they're going to leverage all of this. And again, I want to emphasize the point again that we're not just talking about, like many people say, oh, well, it's event stream data. Yeah, sure. Or it's other types of, it's click data. Yeah, sure. But it's actually a transaction, because a transaction can originate in real time. So anything that creates new data is a potential input and source for the streaming platform. So where does that leave an enterprise looking to gain this capability? So I've been evaluating this, and I put together criteria on how to evaluate these platforms. And I'm just going to suggest to you in short order here what to look for. So the first thing is data connections. Pretty obvious. I mean, if you're going to analyze streaming data or process it, you're going to have to connect to different data sources. So we look at a series of technical data sources, meaning like it might be low-level data sources that are doing CDC out of a database, but it may connect to other streaming platforms. So you look for the connectivity that you need in your database. The second is that it has to be real time. Well, you might say definitionally, you've already said it has to be real time. Yes, but let me just say this. Real time means different things to different businesses, right? So a better way to think of real time is business time. So there's many applications where a second or two is fine, but think of financial applications where, sub-millisecond is necessary. So you also have to look at the implementation. How is this implemented? Can it satisfy your throughput? Because it may be able to satisfy your throughput and with the scale-out architecture, but can it also satisfy your single event latency? So there's multiple dimensions to this. You have to make sure the platform does that. We look for development tools. Many of the vendors add value. You have to be able to code tools, but many vendors will add value. They'll have some pipelining tools and some other value-added tools that improve developer productivity. And you look for storage as well. You might think that, well, it's streaming, so it's data in motion. It is, but often what you need to do to that streaming in motion is enrich it with historical data. You might have some mobile application that has a user ID, but then to call a machine learning model to make a recommendation to them, you have to access some historical context data. And you certainly may want to store that data for some later machine learning training operation. Leading us to AI or machine learning model capability. Can you embed any arbitrary machine learning model in that stream, right? And technically speaking, a machine learning model is a transformation of data, right? And if the streaming data platform is your unifying platform for all of the real-time data in your organization, well, it can't go down. So also looking for fault tolerance capabilities. And, a lot of today's platforms have degrees of fault tolerance built into it, but you also have to have fault tolerance of the infrastructure. There has to be some resiliency to upgrades and updates. You have to take it down. And then that brings me to security. I won't go into detail on that. That's both data security and access security. And then also efficiency. Well, that's wonderful that, it can scale to 1,000 nodes. But if a competitive product or open source product can do the same workload in 100 nodes, that's interesting. And you probably don't even want to have to say the word node or server either, right? Because it's probably going to be virtualized as well. So we look at that efficiency. Many companies are also interested in efficiency, not just from a cost perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective as well. So that's also another factor. And then certainly cloud. But you know what? It's pretty clear that over the last few years, with Forrester surveys, survey after survey after survey, shows that companies don't want to be locked in to one particular cloud. And there may be many reasons for this. It may have something to do globally, it may have to do with a single source provider, it may have to do with the fact that they have data gravity within different things. So how can this run in the cloud? How can it be managed? And how can it be used in multiple clouds? So those are a few of the things to look for in a capability. And all these are relevant to whether you look at a commercial product or an enhanced commercial offer that's based upon open source. So streaming data platforms, we've been seeing our large global clients using this as an architectural backbone to abstract that complexity of real-time applications across many use cases. But I will say this. For digital natives or cloud natives, this is like absolutely a core architectural capability. But for the larger companies, this is they're just getting started here. So we expect that we're probably a third of the way along deep usage and maturity. So there's a lot of upside opportunity for enterprises to do this. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Lorenzo.
Thank you, Mike, for those insights into streaming. Let me take over here and talk about the total economic impact case study that we did that was commissioned by Aiven on the Aiven platform. Mike played an essential role in reviewing the model and checking the inputs and outputs that we used for the model, and also reviewing the storyline that we created for the case study. So thanks for that, Mike. My name is Lorenzo Introna. I was the project lead to do this case study. Was involved with all the interviews that we did with the customers that Aiven gave us to talk to, and also then oversaw the process of creating the case study and the financial model that followed. So let me just give a very short overview of a total economic impact. So Forrester's methodology for doing these case studies is what we call the total economic impact. And it essentially, what it does is it tries to go beyond typical measurements that are done by technology organizations, which are based around the total cost of ownership. So rather than only looking at costs of operation and maintenance, we also look at the benefits that come from that. And that sounds more like a return on investment methodology, but our total economic impact methodology takes it one step further. We also look at the benefits that organizations get in terms of flexibility. What's the value that they get from the solutions that they're using, providing more flexibility for them? And we also adjust our models through risk, recognizing that not all companies have the same context, the same environment, the same setup. We also balance our model through doing risk assessments on the calculations that we do, so that we can come out with a model and a return on investment calculation that more accurately reflects the real world environment that those applications and solutions are running in. So that's our overall view on the total economic impact methodology. If we look at how we do these projects, typically we start with due diligence. We do stakeholder analysis. Interviews where we also talk to what's the value proposition, the unique value proposition, to make sure we have a really good understanding of the value that the solution provides from the perspective of the creators of that solution. And then we turn it around and we go talk to the customers and we listen to what they consider the value to be, what has been the benefits for them, what have been the costs that they've incurred, and we collect all the data from these customer interviews, and only the data from the customer interviews then goes into our composite and our financial model. I'll come to in a second, I'll explain what the composite is, but with the financial model, we validate that financial model by reviewing it with people like Mike, who have a deep understanding of the solution, and also with the customers, again, that we interviewed, when we then write the case study, and then it's prepared and presented in a way that we're presenting it today. So that's the overall process that we follow when we do a total economic impact study. Let's look at some of the key aspects of this case study and some of the key results that we got from the case study. So when talking to interviewees, we often got this very strong feedback that open source solutions were more time consuming than they potentially were thinking they would be, and they thought they could manage them on their own, but they were spending more and more time and resources going into that, spending more time and resources in managing the open source projects and the open source technologies they were using. And the other element that they often found was that they were challenged with resiliency and stability issues that were also causing some losses for them. And some of the interviewees we spoke to actually had to pay some significant penalties because of the lack of stability or resiliency in their solutions. Others couldn't sell as many, couldn't close deals with potential future customers because of the lack of being able to provide an SLA that would be acceptable for the kind of conditions that they were providing solutions for. And finally, the other thing that we often spoke about in the interviews was this idea of being able to scale easily. And this was an area that they often struggled with as well within their current environments. This, of course, is far away from the ideal that they had set themselves. I mean, they all wanted to provide stable, secure, resilient, automated solutions that could easily scale. But the intention that they had was not being fulfilled. And therefore, they were looking for other alternatives. How could they get a better handle on managing their open source technologies, and specifically in this case around their data streaming open source technologies within a cloud? I know, Dave, that when we were talking earlier, you also had mentioned that this was something that you also have heard from customers in the past too. So do you have something just to add to this?
Yeah, thanks. So these are all great points to make. And one big misconception we hear a lot is that open source is free. I mean, financially, that is. Of course, you can go and download the software for no charge from Postgres, Apache Kafka, and the like, but actually making those things run in a production environment, secure, scalable, resilient, as you said, that's quite a lot of investment that you need to make. So I think, yeah, this is a great introduction to the Aiven platform and really why it exists at all. Great.
Thank you, Dave. And Dave, as we go forward, I mean, I know you've got a couple of things that you'd like to add as well. So just jump in and add those things as I get through the slides. All right. So if we look at the environment or the situation that the interviewees were in before they moved to the Aiven platform, they spent quite a lot of time with self-management. So they were trying to do it by themselves. They were trying to allocate resources and time to get a handle on the open source technology stack that they had created. All of them had done that within either a hosted environment or within an existing cloud environment already, but still doing self-management. A second area that they were facing more and more challenges with was this idea of technical personnel, so people operating the open source stack, that those people were more and more being pulled into mundane tasks around simply doing operation, backing up, upgrading. So things that they felt, in their own words, were not really part of their strategic objective and in terms of value creation for their customers. And they felt people were being distracted by these mundane tasks and being distracted from the development that they needed to do for their solution. And the third area that I spoke about on the previous slide is they were often challenged with these outages, incidents that were causing them not to be available for business, whether it's a web shop, their web shop or web store that was closed, shut down for 2 hours and they couldn't sell anything, whether it was fulfilling orders in a logistics supply chain process, or whether it was providing stability in a call center environment. These were all challenges that they were facing in terms of stability. And Dave, I know we spoke so earlier about this. There was also this idea of these mundane tasks that personnel had to do as well.
Yeah, that second one, that point about mundane tasks is really close to my heart, having been a developer in a past life. I mean, there's nothing a technical person hates more than those pointless, repetitive things. And of course, what you'll find that they do is put effort into automation, which is great. But then you've got scripts that then need to be maintained and shared across teams. And that becomes a hard problem in its own right. Then we're not just managing the main tech stack that we're talking about today, but also an ecosystem of these bespoke custom tools. And I think that can spiral out of control quite quickly, can't it?
Exactly. So when we asked the interviewees, so what options did they consider to try and alleviate these mundane tasks that they were either trapped in, or trying to find ways to increase stability, we essentially came up with this list of 4 things that were mentioned by the interviewees. The one was to simply accept the situation that they needed to continue or replan or repurpose people or get more people to continue working the way they were, and therefore spending more money than they were actually planning originally on maintaining the environment that they were in at the moment. A second option that came up quite often was that came up in the interviews was also this idea of, all right, well, there are managed services within the clouds. Why don't we migrate to those managed services that are being provided by the cloud providers? And I must say, within all the interviews we did, all of them stated that they actually didn't like this option, because that would mean that they would need to do that for every cloud they were using their solutions in. And that would give them a lot more, that would duplicate work they would have to do. So that multi-cloud capability was a reason why they didn't really select this option as a way to move forward. A third option that came up was this idea of developing your own solution, creating a solution that would functionally do similar things to what platforms like Aiven do, increasing the automation, increasing the stability, automating those mundane tasks. But once here again, there was this idea of, and Dave reflected on that already, this idea of, well, that would then be a different solution, and we would still need people to continue developing and maintaining that solution, which would be kind of defeating the objective, which was to not let people be distracted and to get them to focus on the core development that needed to be done around their strategic solution that they were presenting. So that was the third option. And then the fourth option was this partnering with a fully managed service platform provider. And when we did the case study, we actually looked at these 2 environments. We said, what's the return on investment when you use a full service managed service provider versus developing your own solution? Because developing your own solution would fulfill some of the criteria, like multi-cloud and all these kind of things, and then using the fully managed services of a platform provider, comparing these 2 to each other, that was the basis of the case study that we did. One of the key results that we found in the study was using a managed services platform provider was the improvement or the consistency of performance. They didn't feel like they had lost any performance from what they were doing before, and that there was a consistent performance. But as we will reflect in the next couple of slides, they did feel that there were savings that they were having in the infrastructure that they needed to have similar levels of performance. There was also increased transparency and efficiency on resource utilization, and this was specifically CPU. That the increased transparency they got allowed them to be much more specific on the kind of investments they needed to make in those resources, and being able to manage the amount of resources they needed depending on the seasonality of the workloads that they were doing. The third area was this ability to scale up. Many, 3 or 4 of the interviewees reflected back to us that scaling was a big job. They needed a lot of planning ahead of time and kind of building a hypothesis of when they would need to scale and plan for that, and then actually get resources together to manage that scaling activity. And one of the comments that we got back, very short verbatim, that you can also read in the case study is, previously it took us weeks to do this, but with Aiven it takes us minutes to achieve the same properly. So that ability to more easily scale and scale up and down, especially the compute storage, was a key benefit that they immediately got. And then, of course, the fulfillment of any security and compliance requirements they had, that was also a very important result that they felt was valuable for them working together with Aiven. Overall, if we look at the results of the financial model, we came up with a return on investment calculation of over 200%, so 204%. Overall benefits over 3 years, and this is the present value of these benefits of $8.5 million, and a net present value of $5.4 million overall. So very impressive results for that move that they wanted. And of course, and we'll go into those benefits in a second, what we also see is that the additional benefits they got, the more specific flexibility and agility benefits they got, are also added to the financial benefits that they got at the end. Dave, anything that you'd like to add at this point?
No, this is all clear.
All right. Good. So let's talk about, when we talk about a composite, we build a case study based on a profile, an organizational profile, and some assumptions that we make within that profile. But creating that composite is based on real people that we spoke to. So it's not just us making assumptions about fictional usage, storage, or costs or benefits or something like that. We interview different people for our study, and the data and the characteristics of the organizations that we interviewed are used to create this composite that we use then to create our financial model with. So in this study, we interviewed somebody from a technology service provider, from a B2B electronics retailer, logistics solutions provider, and a software as a service solutions provider. They were all senior executives within these organizations, and as you can see from their regional breakdown and from their revenue, they were also considered to be already enterprise organizations or small to medium business organizations that we also. So we wanted to make sure that we get a full spectrum of people in terms of the variety of the clients that Aiven serves. But we also focused, when we created the composite, we focused more heavily on the enterprise characteristics within our composite in order to create the case study. One of the we've spoken about some of these challenges already in some of the previous slides, but when we looked at some of the key challenges that the composite organization faced, these were some of the assumptions that we had made then around the composite. Was this idea of needing resources to manage the technology stack. We also looked at stability and reliability as a key driver of the composite for why the composite organization was going to wanted to move to a managed services platform, and also the knowledge and the experience that would be necessary within such an organization to actually manage this open source solution. And then the final thing that we used as a driver within the composite was this idea of having a better management of cost, and also being able to do scaling more effectively. Bringing that all together, our composite consisted of the following characteristics. So as I mentioned before, we looked at a enterprise level composite with enterprise characteristics. So looking at revenue of above $1 billion, excuse me. Looking at employees exceeding 1,000 employees. We didn't look at any specific industry because from the interviews we could see that there wasn't any specific industry that Aiven would provide more benefits or have less benefits for. We saw that the benefits were agnostic of the industry that these clients were working in, and so we didn't select any specific industry for this composite. And then, as you see there, they were also applying the composite itself, and that was also based on the interviews we did. They were applying the Aiven solution in a specific individual solution within that organization. So we didn't find any of the customers yet applying Aiven across the whole organization for all the open source solutions within the organization. And that, of course, if we do look at the drivers for the business case later, we'll see that should they do that, should they expand the usage of Aiven, we expect that the return on investment and the benefits from an Aiven platform would also increase given the wider usage of Aiven within an enterprise organization. All right. Anything else that anybody would like to add? Mike, Dave? All right. Good. Then let's look at the more specific benefits that we took from the business case. So overall, we calculated five key benefits from within the case study. These are all 3-year risk-adjusted benefits. As I explained before, we looked at every calculation. We saw the variety or the variability in those calculations given different organizational contexts, and then we adjusted those with a risk adjustment to make sure that we reflected a more realistic situation. So all these benefits are calculated using that risk-adjusted approach. The top benefits that you see here is this saving of not having to build a solution themselves, and that was by far the biggest saving that all the interviewees spoke about. Is saying is if they commented, for example, one of the interviews said, well, if we had to build something comparable, not a solution like Aiven, but something comparable with comparable functionality, we would need to double the amount of developers in our team in order to reach that stability that we were getting from Aiven. So that saving was the biggest part of the benefits that we calculated within the study. The second biggest one was this increase in reliability and resiliency. The fact that they went from several incidents per year where they had that had an impact on business outcomes, reduced revenue, penalties, fines that they had to pay, even costs that they needed to recover the solutions and systems that they were running at that time. This resiliency was something they immediately benefited from, where they went from several incidents per year to no incidents per year, or when they were managing, if they looked in their ticketing systems, reducing the number of tickets they had by 90% after they had implemented the Aiven solution. So calculating the value of that additional reliability and resiliency, we came up with this being the second biggest benefit that they had. The third benefit was also the reduction of people needed to manage the OpenStack, the open source technology stack, and this was one of the key unique value propositions that Aiven had provided, and Dave spoke about that before as we started. They could move resources that were doing operations. They could move those resources back into the development, into the engineering teams to work on engineering tasks for the key product that they were building or the key solution they were building, or in the organizational interviews, in the enterprise level interviews that we were doing, they could move those operational resources into doing other tasks like building more automation scripts and managing more automation scripts. In other words, getting value from those resources somewhere else in the organization. And then we can see here with the fourth and the fifth benefits, we could see that was more related specifically to the infrastructure. First of all, there was a reducing the cost of savings from being able to manage, especially compute more easily, being able to select different classes of compute on holidays, being able to reduce the amount of compute that they needed for doing certain activities, or increasing those compute requirements for very specific workloads, and having much more granular control. This was introducing savings for them because they were spending less on that resource. And then the last part, which is the committed costs that they were having for the infrastructure that they were buying from Aiven. If we compared the savings that they had before they had Aiven to the savings if we were comparing the costs before they had Aiven for infrastructure, for the month-to-month infrastructure costs, and comparing that to the infrastructure costs they were paying within their Aiven fee, we also calculated savings there for the organization. I've gone through these in a little bit more detail because just being conscious of the time, there are more detailed slides behind this slide, which I'll skip through now, which essentially go into a little bit more detail for these individual benefits, but I'll skip over those, as I said, in the interest of time. All right. So we spoke about the benefits we could quantify because we could work out the savings, either in terms of money, in terms of time, and then convert that through calculations into a dollar value. But there were also non-quantifiable or benefits that the interviewees spoke about. The one that we spoke about already, and we'll pass over to Intel in a few minutes to talk about the reasons for this, is the interviewees spoke about consistent performance. So they didn't lose any performance moving from their current environment to the Aiven environment, but they did recognize that they are paying less for that performance. And so there was a lot of consistency, and we couldn't calculate exactly from a financial perspective. We couldn't calculate exactly how those savings were occurring because clients were not gathering data on that. So that's why we're bringing this up as a non-quantifiable benefit. But there was a benefit that was consistently reported by the interviewees. The second area that was consistently reported was this business impact because of the increased stability. So we did quantify that in terms of them not having to pay penalties anymore, in terms of them being able to, with the more stability, being able to not lose business anymore because their web store was open with more reliability. But what we're talking about here in terms of this business impact of increased stability was also the additional business that they could sell because they now could offer a better service level agreement. And that was especially relevant for two of the interviewees, where they said, well, previously we could only reliably offer a 3-digit SLA, but with Aiven we could then move to a 4-digit SLA, and that was the level that our clients were expecting and our prospects were expecting, and this made the sales process easier. Here again, there was no quantifiable data that we could take and turn that into value. There was also a lot of variability on what new business means for these different organizations, and so we wanted to highlight that then here as a non-quantifiable benefit, but a benefit that was reported by all the interviewees. A third benefit, non-quantifiable benefit, was the partnership approach with Aiven. All the interviewees reported that the expert knowledge of Aiven in open source, specifically the technology supported by the Aiven environment, and their commitment to open source saved them time. It saved them time because they could rely on the experience and the knowledge of Aiven to help them reconfigure and set up their environment in a better way than they were doing before within the Aiven platform. So this partnership and this knowledge and expertise delivered by Aiven and the solution partners from Aiven was an important aspect that was also non-quantifiable. And then the last part that we're referring, actually I've covered that part just now as well. Those last two parts are to do with the partnership with Aiven. All right. If we think about flexibility, there were really three things mentioned. The one component of flexibility that was mentioned by the interviewees was this idea of having multiple services in one platform. So having Kafka, Postgre, these different services being managed in a single platform provided a lot of flexibility for them, not having to have different solutions for those different services that they were using. And a big one, and I think a unique value proposition that the interviewees reported, was the fact that Aiven was multi-cloud. It allowed them to operate these services across multiple clouds and across different regions, not having to have different solutions for every cloud provider. And if you recall, as we started, this was a key requirement, not to be locked into any specific cloud with the solution that they were looking for. And then the last one was that they reported as flexibility, was this idea of being able to adjust to the enterprise lifecycle of managing complex solutions. All right, and finally, I'll just quickly talk about costs. We're not going into a lot of detail here. There was really only one big cost, which was the Aiven specific monthly fees that they paid. This included, it's a blend between the service, and the infrastructure costs and their support agreements. And what we did in the case study, we removed the infrastructure cost from the case study because they would have to pay for that regardless if they were using Aiven or not. The savings, as I reported in the benefits, they are savings because they paid less using Aiven than they were paying before. So we've recognized those savings. but we removed the overall cost because those costs are not created by Aiven themselves. The second and third one you can see are really small in comparison to the Aiven specific fees, and that was the cost of migration and the cost of doing the proof of concept. There are costs related to that, and the interviewees provided very good data and very consistent data on this, the cost of migration and the proof of concept. But as you can see, very small numbers compared to the overall Aiven specific fees that they were paying. Overall, in summary, we could see that within 6 months, there was a payback moving to the Aiven platform. I already spoke about the ROI being 204%. We already spoke about the present value, the benefits present value and the net present value of 805 million and 5.4 million. And as you can see, overall, over a 3-year period, with applying the adjustments, the risk adjustments, overall, we could see a very positive business case using for the clients who migrated to the Aiven platform. So that's a summary of the key. That was a summary of the key aspects of our case study. This was just an abridged version of the case study, and Aiven has provided a link for the full case study that you can then read in detail later. So I'd like to just hand over to Intel now, to Murali, and thank everybody for listening so far. And Murali, as we discussed in one of the non-quantifiable benefits, clients reported that that Aiven was charging, or that they needed to pay less for infrastructure using the Aiven platform than they were paying before. And so I think if we can pass over to your presentation now, we can look into maybe some of the aspects that are driving that reduction in cost that they had to pay.
Thanks, Lorenzo, for the case study. Let me share my slides. As I said, thanks, Lorenzo. I'm the technical lead working with Aiven. And for the next few minutes, I'm going to be sharing my experience working with Aiven, and particularly Intel's contribution to software and open source, and touching upon the point Lorenzo said, how we work closely to optimize software to reduce infrastructure costs for our customers, and how we brought that through Aiven's multi-cloud solution. Everyone knows Intel as a microprocessor company, but what they don't know is we have around 15,000 software engineers who are optimizing software to run best on x86 and Intel architecture in general. And a lot of the processor features we bring need software activation. The software work Intel does can be categorized into 3 big segments. First one is the open source. So we do a lot of work to bring open source contributions, and also bring all our features exposed through open source software so that it can be leveraged. And this is one area where we work closely with Aiven. Second one is we also work with commercial software companies up and down their software stack to bring the Intel optimizations into their software. And last but not least, the telemetry, the bridge between the software and hardware. We have unique set of processor features which can showcase the different pain points or optimization areas for software. So we provide tools which bridge the gap between hardware and software and try to get the best performance out of the hardware through software. Let's go to open source. So as you see here, many of the processor features we bring need OS activation. Intel is one of the biggest contributors to the Linux kernel. We have thousands of engineers working on this, And as you see here, we have several open source and GitHub projects where we have employees be the maintainers and also contribute actively to it. And we have done most recently we have done a lot of optimizations on both the data and AI side. We will be talking about Apache Kafka project. We worked with Aiven closely, but on the AI side, we have done a lot of optimizations to TensorFlow, which has given orders of magnitude of performance. Um, So what does all this mean to the end customer, right? I mean, we have people working on software. We bring the best hardware with the best features that even multi-cloud cares about, right? The safety, security, reliability, and scalability. But as you see here, Intel is working constantly to develop and bring uh, platforms to the data center, cloud, and edge on a yearly basis. We refresh our platforms, but what that comes along with that is better processors, more cores, higher frequency, and these can all give you a generation to generation of 15 to 20% improvement between our platforms. But the value and the work we do with software and particularly open source can magnify the improvements that the end customer sees. So as you see here, a particular project where we work closely in Java, and a lot of the applications that work on Java, say Kafka, can take advantage of it. So we make it easier for customers that we work with the Open JDK Foundation and put all our uh, hardware optimizations into the JDK layer. So when a customer or a Java project wants to take advantage of it, all they have to do is go to the latest JDK, right? From in our case, going from JDK 8 to 11 to 17 or 19, just going to the latest JDK on our newer platforms um, opens up a lot of improvements. So this is how by combining both the hardware and software we can get optimizations like up to 4x just by going to our later platforms. And this kind of ties into the TCO story Lorenzo was talking about. By just moving to our latest platforms, you're able to get an overall TCO benefit with the improvements done on both software and hardware. So I'm going to quickly talk about two open source projects, but particularly I'm going to dwell on Apache Kafka. This is a, a leader in the data streaming platform, and we work closely with Aiven to bring all our Apache Kafka optimizations into their multi-cloud solution. To kind of tie it, as you see here, this is a work we did with Aiven, but what I'm showing here is on the AWS platform through the Aiven cloud. You look at three generations of Intel platforms, right? Comparing the Intel second gen to the third gen to the fourth gen. So what you see here is the work we did with Ivan in optimizing Kafka is able to get you like almost 5x better improvement compared to a 3-year-old platform, right? By just going from Intel second gen to the fourth gen, what you see here is you almost get 5x improvement in throughput and much better latency. The latency Lorenzo was talking about in terms of providing the resiliency, right, and the upkeep, all of that has improved by 5x. So my experience working with Ivan has been extremely good, as the case study pointed out. We were able to sit with them, bring our optimizations, enable it into their Apache Kafka code branch, and also prove it on uh, all the cloud solutions. And this particular story is about AWS. And to complete with this, Intel is committed to open source and software, and a lot of the open source projects Ivan works on will continue to optimize them and provide a differentiated experience in Ivan Cloud. Back to you, Dave.
Thanks, Morali. I think we're done. How do we end? We ended this.
All right. Well, Jason has to come in and outro. So we'll cut that piece of it out.
So maybe Morali could redo that bit and you hand to Jason and he can close us out and then we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we get that last slide?
Last
That
slide.
last lookout slide back on.
I'm going to give it back to Jason to conclude the presentation. Thank you.
And thank you, Murali. And a special thank you to all of our speakers today. There's a lot of great stuff covered here, and we really appreciate all of you sharing your insights with us. And also a very special thank you to everyone who tuned in. Don't forget to check out our website, ezone.com/events, for a ton of other great events. Thank you again to everyone who joined us. We really appreciate you being here.
Jason, can you do that again? Because like it was very muffled. It sounded like you were underwater.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not sure what's going on there. Is that
Okay.
hello? Does that still sound muffled?
No, it's better.
Okay.
So Murali, can you just like throw up that slide again and kick it off to him so he can do it all over?
Sure.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Aiven and for providing me the opportunity today, and back to Jason for the ending notes.
Thank you, Murali. And thank you as well to all of our speakers today. There's a lot of great stuff covered here, and so we really appreciate you sharing your insights with us. And a very special thank you to everyone else who tuned in. We really appreciate you joining us, and be sure to check out our website at dzone.com/events. We've got a bunch of other great events just like this one. Thanks so much, everyone. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Great. Much better.
All right.
All right. Awesome. So we'll take a few days to edit this, get everything ready to go. And then, Dawn, I'll just reach back out on Monday and let you know as soon as we start the on-demand campaign. Okay.
That's great. And will you shoot me the edited version before that starts?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can take a look. Let me know if there's anything else you want to change, and then we'll launch it.
Fabulous.
All
Great.
right. Awesome.
I love it. Thanks, everyone.
everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.